Okay, I'm not really sure why the recording stopped, but it stopped. There's nothing going on here where that should have happened. Let's start again. We're looking at Bryan Kohberger. Is there going to be an appeal? Is something happening here where he has some sort of angle where Bryan has been, holding information hostage, that he has that he needed more time to process? Is his defense team involved? I don't know. So we're starting again here. Hopefully, everybody notices that this is pretty much a new podcast. Okay. So for some reason, I don't know why it stopped. There was no real reason. There's nothing happening here. All right. So everybody come back in here and we're going to begin. I'm going to erase that other recording so we don't have any confusion. All right. And we're going to erase that. All right. So we should be looking at Bryan Kohberger and why and if, and is this actually going to happen? All right. So let's take a look. I was actually asking this question right prior to this starting, whether or not there was information out there that Bryan Kohberger had, and he was unsure how this was ever going to get presented, but he knew about it. And then I saw images of lead prosecutor Bill Thompson. So something happened there with, information that came across and something he knows. This may have been why Bill Thompson exited so quickly, and he was so willing to accept this plea deal. I didn't expect Bill Thompson to actually play into this answer. So I'm going to invite you guys to ask questions. Thanks for coming back. I don't know what's going on with this spaces thing, but that's what was happening, and it just stopped all of a sudden. So we're back on, and we're looking at Bryan Kohberger. Is there going to be some sort of an appeal? Is he going to make that request, or is his lawyer going to make that request? Is his lawyer even still Ann Taylor? I think a lot is going on here behind the scenes, and we just don't even know about it. I'm also looking at the fact that, now we're hearing about how he's complaining. How is Bryan Kohberger complaining about his life behind bars and this and that? And the thing is that the United States has made certain conditions for prisoners, no matter how vile the crime, no matter what was admitted to. But I don't think that's what's going on here. I think he was placed immediately in protective, like isolation, so that they could continue working on the investigation. That's what I always saw with this, was that the investigation was still going forward. Thanks, everybody, for coming back. I don't know what was going on with the spaces, but it started for a minute and a half, and then all of a sudden a ghost came in and decided that it was going to stop. All right. So, anyway, you guys are back. I am going to accept questions about this, but first thing that's coming up is Bryan Kohberger. Let me just ask directly, and then you guys can chime in with your specifics. Is Bryan Kohberger going to seek an appeal here? He has a very narrow margin by which to facilitate this appeal. But I think here's the odd thing. I think he knew that going in. Like there was so much that he knew that the whole the whole deal where the plea deal was set out and he's admitting to murdering these four poor souls and what was going on there. It was just so rehearsed and nothing was right about it for me. I mean, the whole thing was flashing in my head like, oh my God, it's like strobe lights here. I think it was not only to get, the death penalty off the table, but to restructure a trial should there be one. Everybody's worried that no trial is going to happen. Oh, I think a trial is going to happen. That's what's weird. I sense, they just needed more time. And the judge was saying, no, you don't get any more time. We're going to shut that down. There's no real reason for us to delay. And I think what was happening was the defense team was just being railroaded every single turn. And I think they just wanted it out of their docket. I think they wanted it off the schedule. They didn't want to deal with this anymore. Let someone else deal with it. All right. So if you have some sort of all right, so Crime Diva, you want to come on here and send me a request to speak? Let's do this live instead of sending me a message in this thing. You're saying you have a hard time believing the nonsense about Bryan being harassed in prison. I just feel like this is so sensationalized, makes a great headline for clicks and hateful remarks. I mean, I went in there and I looked at this situation. Okay, I added you in here. I looked at what Bryan Enton had to say over there and his little report on and Nancy Grace and how she was reporting on Bryan Kohberger whining about how he's being treated. The inmates aren't playing nice. They're yelling. They're doing this. They're doing that. And he can't sleep. I was thinking that, yes, that's happening. But, I think a lot of this has to do with he understands there's an amount of time he's going to be in there. And his understanding from his attorney, from Ann Taylor, was, hey, this is going to be very short-lived. Just make the best of it. And I think he didn't expect, all this other stuff to be going on. I think he probably thought, oh, I'll be by myself and I'll be able to keep working on my angle of the case and making notes, documentation, that type of thing. I think he's been helping them since day one to try to put together a case to exonerate him, what he said from day one. I think him complaining about how they're doing this, I think that could have been done a tiny bit better. I think that he's just not, I didn't think that Ann Taylor prepared him for what that was going to be. And maybe that's why he gets to have this appeal. She didn't prepare him for how that was going to be, for what all this was going to be. Well, they continued working on their investigation. All right. So, Crime Diva, are you back in here?
I'm here. Yeah. Thank you for that.
I'm calling you Crime Diva, but if you want to say your first name, you can do so.
That's
Um,
okay. You're good.
okay.
Um yeah,
So, I
it
just
just
think that he
seems
wasn't prepared, but do you think that this could have been like part of the plan all along? Because Ann Taylor's on a game. I'm sorry, but she is. And I think that she's thinking of different things that'll make it look like she didn't prepare him for this. She didn't let him know that it was going to be like this.
yeah, that's a good point. I guess I'm really wrapped up in how over sensationalized this case got. And of course, everybody wants to hear that he's being bullied or attacked or harassed or tortured, and I don't know. So I saw all the headlines and just couldn't put a lot of weight into that.
My question is, why am I seeing Bill Thompson all of a sudden and information that Bryan Kohberger may have on Bill Thompson that caused that brought this deal so quickly and without warning? Did he know something about Bill Thompson's story or his investigation that he could just throw out there and say, hey, I've got this on you? Why did Bill
Yeah.
Thompson leave so suddenly? Why did he change jobs? What happened there?
Did you notice that after the sentencing and Bill Thompson and law enforcement did their press conference, um, I feel like Bill Thompson looked very pleased to say, once Brian goes off to the prison system, I have no control over anything anymore. And he smirked when he said it, like almost like he was done and throwing his hands up.
I didn't notice that, but psychically, when I went in today, honestly, I was surprised to see anything about Bill Thompson being the reason why this happened so quickly. I think that he has something on him,
Yeah,
either through the investigation or something. It feels psychically as if when I work on investigations, like it has certain categories, and this feels like a category of Bill Thompson just sort of made up a story and he ran with it, and he had proof to the opposite, and
yeah,
he hid information from the defense team on purpose. And the reason I think Bryan knows about this is I think somebody was talking to him when he was jailed elsewhere. I think he came upon some information from, you know, maybe people that were writing to him, people that were saying, "Hey, you didn't do this and this is how I know." And I think certain people reached out to him. Is this out of
yeah.
is this insane that I'm saying this? I mean, I'm
No,
saying he has
no.
something on Bill Thompson. He has something on him. And notice how quickly Bill Thompson just vacated the premises, and now he can write his book and his memoirs and whatever. And he got him out of this supposed death penalty. But I feel like they just needed more time, and nobody was going to afford them any more time, and it was becoming impossible for Ann Taylor to actually go through the whole process with the law the way that it is written.
Yeah. I
Am I?
agree. No, you're right on. I mean, I feel like this case is unlike any other that I've ever followed before, and I don't know why I'm so drawn to this case, and I just can't I just don't see this being a case closed situation.
I agree.
And all everyone, not just Bill Thompson, but a lot of the law enforcement officers that were involved, it all just seems so strange and something is not right. And I have so many more questions now that they released these documents. They released some photos. The officer reports when they were on the scene. Nothing makes more sense now, which is what should have happened when they released all those documents. I was prepared to read the documents and say, oh, this is why. This is why Bryan took the plea. This is why Bryan was going to be convicted. And I
No,
don't see that.
he took the plea that quickly. It wasn't just, for what I'm seeing here right now is he took the plea so quickly because the death threats he was receiving were like so egregious that, even if he walked outside for 2 minutes, that would be it. And he knew that his family had also been targeted, and they have
Yeah.
also received death threats.
Yeah. And that's a great point too, because I feel for his family in this situation.
Well, and again, I agree with you that, look, if he did it, like, there are some crimes and murders that I look at psychically that I know right away. Okay, the guy did it. I mean, there's nothing, Luigi, let's bring him up.
Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not even, I don't care if he's like an internet star and he's going to be the next, poster child for whatever crime series. I don't care. He did it. He killed somebody. And in 2025, you just can't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
I agree. And to your point, when I look at somebody like Luigi, um, I can, I- when I first saw Luigi, I was like, really? Like, are you kidding me? But then it all comes together and I can see what happened. The thing with Bryan Kohberger is, Carla, I cannot wrap my mind around, for the life of me, I cannot envision that man committing that crime. And I'm very open to accepting his guilt. If I felt like enough evidence was out there that proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. But I just can't help but think he did not do this. Maybe he knows who did do it. Maybe he has more information, like what you said about having something on Bill Thompson, or, these connections that he did have to law enforcement, because I think that Pullman PD definitely knew who he was. Regardless of how they want to blow it off in their interviews, he had contact with them,
you
but
know,
I cannot picture him executing
I
that
can't
crime.
either. I can't either. And the thing is that I've dealt with very high profile murder cases where, there's an element of psychosis and, you know, like multiple personalities. And I worked on Zodiac Killer, for God's sake. Um,
Yeah, wow. Wow.
I've worked on other cases where, you know, it's been about, a desire or something like that. But, I think one of the reasons why I was drawn to this, and I learned this after I started looking at it. I've been working on this since day one, since the murders happened. And it's because I also experience a very exacerbated form of OCD. And I understand, like, I could literally put myself in his place and I would be perfectly fine in a cell by myself,
Yep. Yep.
knowing that I'm going to have like some sort of like iPad or television and
Right.
time to myself. The mistake he made with reporting this, he's irritated that he's not able to sleep. One of the things I need the most is sleep. I noticed that with OCD.
Yeah.
I Everybody has different variations of it, but I noticed that if I don't get like good sleep, that it affects my work. So I think with him, he should have asked for maybe headphones or earplugs or something, where he couldn't hear this. He could just,
Sure.
tune it out. Um, Instead of complaining first, figure out the solution first. But again, he's not as functional as I am with OCD. I am a very high functioning OCD person, and I think he is not as socially adept as I am. I am
Right.
very good with, social situations and relationships and people, and I'm okay with that. It's just my own personal space. That's where I freak out. So, with him, I understand that his form of OCD causes him to perhaps make choices that are so odd, and so just people just don't pay attention to him, is because it's about his his like his reasons for not engaging with them socially. Like, he's just so weird that people just want to create distance with him. And I get it because I'm in that spectrum. I am. But I made mine work so that I could work on crime scenes. And to tell you the truth, when I first started working on crime scenes and with law enforcement and on murder cases and whatever, was my least favorite thing about psychic ability. Like, I didn't want to come anywhere near this. Like, I didn't have some sort of love for this. But I
Right.
was so good at solving puzzles and identifying detail that I was called in. And you'd be surprised
Yeah.
at who has called me in to work on which cases. I'm very quiet about it because, that's private and on a need to
And
know, you know? So I
yeah,
assume,
I respect that. I love hearing you talk about what you've done, and I totally respect the boundaries to keep those things confidential, but I can only imagine.
well, and I think that's why people are targeting him and saying, "Oh, he did it, he did it, he did it," because he's so strange. He is not like Manson, he's not that level. He's not he's too naive with he's so single focused. He's tunnel vision with what he sees, and he's a genius when it comes to that. I can see that. But his problem is that his when he tries to explain this or tries to convey whatever it is that he sees in his search for something. Like, that's why he may have researched, various multiple murders or
Sure.
serial killers or
Yeah.
whatever his online searches were. I am guilty of the same thing.
Same. Yes,
I have not,
absolutely.
I have not, you know, um,
Uh, you know, any for me it's a hobby. But if anybody looked at my search history and tried to pass judgment on me based on my search history, I'd be in a world of trouble because of the things that I've researched and
yeah,
spent
and
time
you know
reading
what?
about. So
And I try to clean up my search history just because I don't want people up in my business. Um, I look at it because I'm learning about certain aspects because I don't know every single little thing about crime scenes, even though I have worked many for the last 2 decades. You would be surprised. Um, and yes, it's been with FBI, yes, CIA. They've brought me in because sometimes they just need fresh eyes. And they know I'm just going to say it and I'm not going to, you know, put sugar on it. I'm just going to say what
sure.
I see. When I when I first started doing it, they said if I wasn't sitting there with a producer from MTV Sphere, and this is a quote from the FBI agent across the table from me. They said, "We would have arrested you." And I said, "That's
Wow.
nice." And because I knew things
Yeah.
that were definitely not in the files. I knew things about the case that that were told to no one. And I remember that morning when I was filming that with them, and we were actually doing like a little pilot episode of a crime case, um, long before Psychic Detectives came out. I mean, we were actually running with that idea, but Court TV picked it up first, and they ran, and then they
Yep.
contacted me. So that's how that all happened. But I was actually doing it from the producers, with MTV Sphere. So we started that whole crime psychic thing back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
and
remember that.
and I remembered sitting there. We were in San Diego. We were looking at a case, and the same scary stuff was happening on the crime scenes. Like they were rolling film, and this was you know it was a new camera. They just put brand new batteries in it, and the batteries went completely dead in 3 minutes. Completely dead.
Wow.
And they said, well, batteries are cheap. We'll just put new ones in there. And that's what would happen around me, is that, so me having to start this podcast twice, that's what
Yeah.
happened. I personally never wear a watch because electronics on my body don't work. I have like some sort of electromagnetic, like, I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening,
No,
but
that's
but
wild.
but there's some sort of something that happens where I make clocks stop and things move and stuff is happening. So
Yeah. Your
so filming
energy is
MTV,
strong.
when they were filming 27 episodes of Haunting Evidence, they would put all the sensors around me and not John and not Patrick, because they knew all the stuff was going to happen around me. And they would do temperature readings, and the ambient air temperature around just me was 10 degrees lower
Mm,
than outside.
that's so interesting.
And I was constantly freezing. But when we were filming the first case of a murder case, it was in the desert. And I remembered we were outside of Palm Springs and we were filming this. Um, that there were so many strange things happening. And he was so mad, the producer was so mad, because Court TV, he said, "That's our show." And I said, "I know." I said, "I am so sorry." But they got to me first. So you know the universe will always find you know exactly how it's supposed to go and who is supposed to carry what, even if somebody else had the idea first.
Yeah.
coming
Sure,
back
no, definitely.
coming back round to this, um it's not, first of all, I'm not a pro burger or anything. I mean, it's kind of weird that a lot of the cases that I tend to get drawn to, or the situations, with the country, seem to center around Pennsylvania. And I was born in Pennsylvania, so I, maybe that's it. I don't know, but I know the area he's from, and let me just say that he is too naive to have done all this. He's smart, but he's not street smart. He's
Well,
he could have
yeah,
had access to a police scanner, sure, but with the OCD mind, let me tell you something. When you're researching something, and it wouldn't be out of the question for him and someone like me to have a police scanner just for fun, just to
yeah,
just to
ag
listen, just
yeah,
to hear
totally
what's.
agree.
And there are some people that I know with this level of OCD that can't go to sleep without the police scanner being on. Like, they actually go to
Yeah,
sleep with it. It lulls them into sleep.
sure, yeah, it's white noise.
I and you know what? I wouldn't put it past him that he had all that going on, because he was just so fascinated by all of it. Not because he wanted to. If he wanted to do it, he never would have made, like, first of all, this is what I've learned working on various serial killers and multiple murder crime scenes and profiles. What I've seen is that they don't actually engage something like that unless you know they they're going to keep a good number of things close to the vest. They aren't going to say a word. They're just going to go about their business researching whatever it is. But serial killers need to be known for their serial killing.
Mhm. Yep. They're proud. Some of them are proud.
And his Bryan Kohberger just doesn't have the arrogance that it would take to pull this off.
Well, and I love how, and I will say, I am not a pro burger either. I hate that term. I just am, all I want to do is just research, fairly research a case. That's all. I don't get emotionally attached to victims or families. So I do get some hate on X for some of my comments coming across cold, but I just don't like get emotionally attached to them. But with Brian, they want to say that he was so smart and he was getting his PhD in criminology and, but then at the same time, he brought his phone with him and then turned his phone off, during the hours of the crime. Wouldn't he have just left his phone on at home so that it never pinged anywhere aside from his apartment? Like, there's
Yeah,
many little details like that
well,
that make
that's
me think Brian's too smart.
again, that's what makes him naive for for me to name him for this crime. He's too naive.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no, if he was going to set somebody else up to do the crime, let's say he's the mastermind and he doesn't want to get his hands dirty and he wanted to appoint somebody else, one of his minions to go, pull off the perfect crime. It still doesn't speak to the fact that he didn't. check all the boxes. Um, he didn't he didn't take care in cleaning up, you know, what needed to be cleaned up. This is speaking to me of a syndicate, whether it's drugs or some other sort of crime related syndicate, but I just see a whole network behind this actual crime. It's
Yeah.
not
I
just
do
one
too.
person. It's not
Yeah.
just one person. They got one person to do it and one person to look out, but there were multiple entities that contributed money. Law enforcement is unfortunately involved.
Bingo.
I'm sorry.
Bingo.
And do they pay off judges? Oh, yes, they do. Are judges selected based on, somebody loses a certain piece of paperwork and somebody else gets assigned to that case in the courtroom? Oh yeah.
Yep.
Look, it's not just about one person. They found This is where Bryan was naive. Bryan Kohberger was naive, and he took everybody at their word. If somebody said something to him, he believed it. And I am more socially adept, so I tend to be a little more balanced when listening to people because I read people all the time. So I think in his case, he listened to the wrong people and he just believed whatever they said. And I think they designed who was going to take the rap for this case. That sheath,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that sheath with the partial fingerprint, that I still see was placed there by a piece of tape.
And where I want to see the photographs of the sheath. Where's the sheath? Because there were people in and out, multiple law enforcement in and out of that house, not to mention other non-law enforcement people that we know were in and out of that house. And no one saw a sheath until hours later
Until
when
it was
one
planted
indiv-
there. I'm sorry, it was planted there by someone in law enforcement, and I
right,
saw that almost within the first set of crime scene. Let's get a look at what's going on there. And I
sure.
think, let's look at how adept they were at taking out all the items from the crime scene and removing, all these items from the house. Look at what a mess that was.
Oh gosh. I
It
mean,
looked
I've
worse.
never seen anything like
It
that
looked
before at
worse
a
than
crime
me.
scene.
I know it looked worse than me, like moving out of my college dorm room. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
It
it
was
looked like a
sloppy.
it
All of
would
it
look
was
like a
sloppy.
caravan of just mishaps. Like, it just looked like, and the mattresses and the way it was placed, and it was
The
just such
back of
a
a pickup
mess.
truck? Back of a pickup
I
truck? I
know.
mean,
It's
well,
like, where are you taking that to, the nearest landfill, or are we going to, you know, tag those things? I mean, it didn't look like anything that I have ever witnessed on a crime scene when they are removing evidence and tagging it and recording everything properly. It didn't look anything like that to me.
yeah, totally agree. I mean, and then reading through, because I did read through the 314 documents
Oh my
that
God.
they put out. You know, and it was just all very sloppy. And when it came to removing those items, you literally have law enforcement rifling through their stuff and they're like, "Oh, look, we just found this. Let's put it in an envelope in a box." I mean, it just is so weird, like the way they rifled through things, packed things up,
Well,
you
usually
know.
if they're bagging evidence, and I've actually been there where, unfortunately the body is still there and the blood is still there, and I have to sort of, you know, tune out what's going on, and I'll process that later personally. But I know that they always have like one person bagging and the second person checking them.
Yeah. There just was no rhyme or reason. Um, I get it that they are a small agency, and I get it they're not equipped to handle this level of crime, but that just goes to show that it was sloppy from the jump, and why all of our questions are very valid.
The thing is that the FBI was actually sitting back and watching and just smirking and laughing because they knew that, let's let the Keystone cops, so to speak, go to town on
Yeah,
whatever that crime scene is. And, because there was definitely, okay, this is going to sound bad, but I'm just going to say it. They, because there was an FBI investigation, there were individuals that were undercover for quite some time in that drug circuit
mm,
trying to
yep,
uncover the bigger fish, so to speak. And when this crime happened, they they were able to continue doing that. So they had to step back and just let them fumble the ball the way they needed to. And unfortunately, 4 lives were lost because people dropped the ball, and there were other things happening in this college community where, there some of the undercover individuals were weaving in and out of that college community. So the problem
sure.
was, do we expose one of our own or a couple of our own and throw away the baby with the bathwater on that whole op that we have going? Or do we let this just happen, and unfortunately something else happened in the midst of all that? I
Right.
I honestly believe there was some sort of undercover op going on in this circuit, because I've worked on those drug cases. I've worked with, you know, DEA. I've worked with, people that have been undercover so deep that it's gone on for 10
Sure.
years, and the problem is that, do they expose and just throw away all their work for 10 years because, something else happened and it's now eclipsing that whole crime scene?
Right. No, I agree, and I believe that I believe that's happened a lot. There's another case that, is a whole other discussion, but there was a big drug ring going on, and in the midst of this drug ring with US Marshals and, drug task force agencies, in the midst of all of this, a 20-year-old female overdosed on drugs in a hotel room with her quote friends, and they panicked because they were the ones selling and distributing the drugs, the ones being watched,
Hmm.
and they carried her body out of the hotel in a piece of luggage, drove her across state lines, and dismembered her body and threw her in a dumpster in another state. And all of this happened while they were being watched, but
They
they
can't do
had to try
anything.
catch them the right way to be able to, keep their drug task force project on, you know, uh, on the straight and narrow, right? Complete their project.
No, I
And
agree. And
yeah, it's wild. I
well,
would love to deep dive that case with anybody sometime that would like to listen, because it was crazy.
and it's not just, I don't jump on the bandwagon of various conspiracy theories because it's popular to do so. I've never been one to follow the popular path of God knows what. But
Yep.
what I have seen is that this country especially, well, no, I've worked in other countries on cases, so I have to say that people in power and governments tend to discard various, especially like in cases of war or battle, where certain amounts of casualties are acceptable, and
Sure. Yeah.
oh, let's get rid of this town. And it's very sad that we have to do that, but we have our number one, you know our number one mission is to do this. And it's so it's so laser focused on that end result and that end game that they don't see that what they're doing is inhumane, or oh my god, do you see what you're doing? And that's why politicians, for most of them, is just what a nightmare it is for them to go to sleep at night, because they have to somehow accept the fact that these deaths are partly due to some
Yeah.
decision they've made.
Yeah. It falls on them
And
ultimately.
they don't know how else to be, because this is the power structure that's going on in the world. And leaders with power aren't just the ones that have money, it's the ones that are smart enough to attack when no one's looking, when no one's paying
Yep.
attention, when everybody's docile and everybody's thinking, oh, it's okay, and we can breathe for 5 minutes. And there are individuals that sit and lie in wait and are very patient to strike when they need to. And
Yeah.
what we don't realize is that within the Idaho 4 killings, and these 4 souls losing their lives, um, it happened to be in the web of this much bigger op that was going on. And oh my god, what a tragedy, but we have to let that go. And that's why nothing got investigated, really. That's why when the parents were screaming, please tell us how our daughter died, tell us what happened, that's why this stuff remains hidden. Because if
Yeah.
they
Which,
uncover that, then they uncover this whole structure, this whole syndicate that they're trying to take down. And that was the main focus. And these deaths happened in the middle of it. Now, did the deaths happen because somebody was trying to deflect attention away from this syndicate and what was going on? That's the other thing. Did they create a murder scene in order to get prying eyes
sure.
from their operation and what was going on?
Sure. And I really think you know, you really summed that up when you're talking about the politics and the money. And I've always gotten the feeling that university, that town thrives off of that university. There's a lot of politics in that little university town.
Mhm.
And they had to figure out a resolution in order to save the financial well-being of that town.
Absolutely.
So,
But they
mm,
also had incentive, because I get that, you know, you know, this the powers that be rushed in and said, "Look, we've got this going on in the undercurrent. We can't disturb this, but we'll give you this in exchange. Some sort of stipend, some sort of government financing towards this and that project.
sure. Sure.
We'll help you
Well,
rebuild your image. We will manage the PR. We will create a firestorm of this. We're going to rebuild and make it better now, and I think there were promises made and hands were being shaken behind the scenes, and
yeah.
they
Yeah.
said, okay, let's go. That's why the parents are just shaking their heads going like, what the hell? I sent my kid there, and what do you mean you're not
Yeah.
going to tell me what's going on? Now, some of the families got a little bit too TV savvy for my taste, but I'm not one to say how you should act when your child is murdered. You know, I don't
Sure.
know. Everybody has their own way of dealing with it. I just think that it was, in Kaylee's case, her dad was it was his private promise to his daughter's spirit, like, this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to do for you. I will not stop fighting until I find answers, and I
I
find out
wish
why.
and I appreciate that. And although I'm not a big fan of how that family has conducted themselves in the public eye, I really want true justice for their daughter and the other victims. And I wish that he would have put some of that energy into looking a little bit closer at why some of us had a lot of questions about the way this was handled from the beginning. And a lot of money has been siphoned around between families, schools, memorials, scholarships. It goes on and on. There is a lot of money that has surrounded this case, and I just find it so strange and
Well,
unsettling.
let's speak about the fact that Donald Trump had to ring in on this case. Like, what business did he have saying word one about this case?
I don't know, and I don't know
Out of
how.
nowhere, someone
Yeah,
got to him and said, "Hey, we'll give you this for this if
yeah.
you say something."
Yeah, I really believe that. And I guess I'll hold back on my thoughts on who may have gotten to him about it.
Yeah.
But but yes, I think that there was a l- a, a big force for him to make that statement because I found that to be so
It was
ridiculous,
odd.
such
It
a
was
ridiculous
it was
statement.
so out of character for him to not talk about himself, right? Like, why are
Yeah.
you talking about something that has no benefit for you personally, which is always your go-to? So I couldn't understand why
Right.
he was saying anything about this case at
Well,
all.
it was like he only said enough to say he said it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He doesn't know anything about that case.
Well,
I
he
mean,
he it came across his desk, and he signed it and doesn't know what he's signing. I mean, it was basically a statement he said he would say, and then they could run with it. And,
Yeah.
there was no reason. He had no business saying anything about that. I don't care who he thinks he is.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
I agree. I mean, I totally agree. I thought that was so strange
well,
and just out of place.
and some people thought, well, maybe he's doing it to get all the all the attention and all the fire off of the Epstein thing. But no, I see something else. There was some sort of deal that went down, backdoor deal with that.
Yeah.
He
No,
got
I
he
agree.
got a certain amount of money, or he got a bill passed, or something happened because he made his one statement.
Yeah.
Donald Trump never does anything unless he is benefiting in some way personally. And there is nothing that is selfless about that soul. And
Well,
come and get
he
me. Come and get me. I don't care.
yeah, no, I get it. And and he focused a lot on the Lake and Riley crime at the University of Georgia campus. That she was murdered by an illegal immigrant, and he pretty much used Laken throughout his entire campaign, which fine, I want justice for Laken as well.
Mhm.
Um but I feel like that fit his narrative of, his immigration goals or whatever. But Brian Kohberger, like,
Yeah,
has nothing to
it
do with
just
anything.
I couldn't
Those kids, those
I
young
couldn't figure
adults,
out what
really.
his angle was there, because, like, I'm a person that can work an angle, just like, I mean, I've worked many an angle in the past, and I've worked with PR, and I wonder what exactly was it that he was trying to accomplish? Like, unless it was somebody asked him to do this and he said, okay, I do this, you give me this.
Yeah. And, he has had a tendency to get very wrapped up in social media. And this case, definitely has been this is a social media case.
Yeah, but
It
why
has
now?
been from the
Why
start.
did he do it so late in the game? If he was really wrapped up in the whole social media of Bryan Kohberger in this case, and these four innocent souls that lost their lives, if he was really wrapped up in it, why didn't he come on board earlier?
Well, because I think that at the end, when we knew there was going to be a sentencing after the plea, everybody, social media, some of the family members that were very outspoken wanted to demand and force Brian Kohberger to tell them, why did you do this? Why? What is your motive? And no one, not even the president of the United States, is going to force Brian Kohberger to give anybody a reason why. And they all looked silly. And Trump is included in looking silly in participating in that little, you know, almost like
Yeah,
a social media riot,
it just
about
seemed
forcing
weird.
Brian.
It was like a blip on the radar. It was like hardly anything. He came in for
Yeah.
2 seconds, said his thing, and then he vacated the premises. It was like he ghosted the thing as fast as he came in, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I just the whole thing about this isn't, oh, I see Brian was so innocent. I think that Brian was just going about being Brian, and doing his awkward little dance of being Brian. And some people have to see things through a prism of, you know, mental illness or psychological imbalance in the lifetime, because that's what they agreed to do. So I think in his case, he was oblivious to all of these people, like, looking at him until the very end when it finally happened. I think he didn't even have a clue that he was under the radar of anybody. I
Yeah.
think he was just, I think he was fascinated that this crime was happening like so close, and
Oh,
he had an idea like
yeah.
what, like who might be involved, because he ran his little surveys. So his genius mind is going through the different people that he interviewed or that he took statements from, and he, knew various people from just, they were socializing and drinking, and he stood separate from them, and he became the observer. So he was
Yeah.
observing social settings, he was observing social interaction. So he had the best purview of anybody, because he got to see like various dynamics going on that other people missed.
Yeah. No, I agree. And this Brian lived 10 minutes away from that house. So this was like in Brian's yard. Why would he not be searching and googling, and look, we all were. We
I
all were when this happened.
I had a case where I grew up in my teeny tiny little town, and it hit close to home, and I ended up following it until the very end. I mean, it was probably one of the reasons that I got involved with crime scenes. Um, and it was an abduction situation. And I was young, and it was almost me. It missed me. There was like a 5-minute window where it missed me. I would have been abducted,
Wow.
but I had to go back into the school for something. And that was, you know, my guardians, my guides, whoever,
Mm, yeah.
saving me from that situation. But it was a violent rape, and they could have died. And these two girls were walking with me outside this school, and I forgot something. I had to go back in, and somebody had broken out of prison, and they they were held up at gunpoint outside
Wow.
outside my school, and I missed that by 5 minutes, and
Wow.
I they were taken, and everybody was just, we had never, it was such a small town I came from that nobody had really gone through anything like that before. And so we didn't know how to react. And like some people were just praying all the time and whatever. But I remembered, um, you know, like people were asking me, what do you see? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I just, I couldn't sleep. I remembered not sleeping. I remembered, I went to see the victim when she got away, but the reason they got away was when they were tied up to trees for about 3 weeks in the middle of winter. And
Wow. Wow. I mean,
they
that's
were they were naked the entire time. And so the fact that they survived the elements the way they did, but it was freezing. I remember that winter. And um, they this guy was a known pedophile, and he escaped prison, and they chewed through the ropes on the trees with their teeth, and that's how they got away.
oh my
And they
god.
chased down a trucker on the highway there, and he picked them up and took them to the police station. But we all thought they died. We didn't know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I just remembered like I couldn't sleep until, this went on for like 2-3 weeks. And so school stopped, everything stopped. And um, I just remembered going to her house afterwards, and my mother took me over there. And you know and what do you say to somebody that was repeatedly raped on a tree? you know,
Sure.
she was young. She was, and what do you say? You know, but what I said to her was, I'm so glad that you made it out. Like you made it out. And that was my answer to her. And even back then, I just remembered I was that person. I was seeing how strong she was,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow, that's very traumatic. Wow. For
And
all of you. Yeah.
I just remembered, I mean, obviously that had an impact on what was going to happen in my life later. But, um, so I was sort of introduced to the whole um, serial situation, and I came from a small town where nothing like that ever happened. So it was brand new. Nobody knew how to react or how to behave. But I was just the person like, you made it out. So that's what you need to look at. You need
Yeah.
to look at, you made it out, and you had the presence of mind to chew through ropes on a tree while you're naked and starving and so cold that you can't feel your body. And
Wow.
repeatedly raped. I mean, it was disgusting. And when he went to go get food is when they saw their chance,
Wow.
and they got away.
That's
And they caught the guy later, thank God. But it was something that showed me that no matter what, you still have to fight until the very last breath. Like
yeah.
you don't just give up. You fight until the very last breath. You fight. And those are the ones that I remember, the ones that fight. And maybe
Yeah.
that's another reason why I started looking at this case was those women fought. They didn't just, say, "Oh, okay," and lay there and take it. They fought back.
Sure. Yeah. They did. Yeah. Which
And
makes it all the more
and
strange to me, you know?
Natalie Holloway also fought
Oh,
back.
oh,
She
yeah.
fought back. And I worked on Jean-Benet Ramsey, and I'm pretty sure she fought back. So, I think there's various lessons and angles as how you can look at these situations that are so gruesome, and I understand the fascination with everybody getting in and chiming in with this and that. I usually don't pay attention to people that are saying, oh, you're a psychic, oh my God, how embarrassing for you. Whatever. If you knew how busy I am, you would
Yeah.
wish you would wish that you were me. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. But I don't need to talk about it because I am the luckiest girl in the world to do what I do, and I get to do what I love to do. So, again, the reason I do these things, these podcasts, is to pay it back a little bit and give you guys, a different perspective on how this works. It's not just me showing off about what I used to do or the cases I've worked or, how up close and personal I've been to these things. It's I see it from an angle that's above the scene,
Sure. Yeah.
and I can see that this wasn't just about these four victims. It was about this syndicate, and they unfortunately were in the middle of this investigation.
Yeah, I've appreciated your insight from day one on this case. I find it to me it just makes a lot of sense.
Well, and it's different from everybody else chiming in, and hopefully it's something
Mhm.
that somebody can derive some benefit from. I'm not just someone screaming at the void or yelling at people because I have an opinion that's different from theirs. I see it from an angle that is very unique. So I don't care if anybody jumps on board or they don't. I'm just telling the story of
Y-
how it is.
Yeah, well, that's, I think those of us that enjoy your unique view, that's exactly why we appreciate it. And I have love hate with this platform because it has turned very nasty over the last couple of years. It's hard to find groups that you could have a reasonable conversation with without someone that must be sitting at home very bored scrolling through posts that they disagree with and making nasty comments. I don't have the energy to do that. Once in a while, somebody irritates me and I might, fire back a little bit, but I respect everybody's opinion. It's not going to change mine.
Well,
Like you're not going to change my mind
you see
about
how
how I
you
feel.
see how I deal with it. It's just like I look, I run a very tight ship over here and I really don't care. I have no guilt whatsoever blocking people and just, if you don't know how to behave yourself and show
Yeah,
courtesy and, a demeanor that's worthy of respect. Look, I don't care if you have a different opinion. Like a bunch of people who follow me are in love with Donald Trump, and that's fine. It's fine as long as they don't try to bring it onto my page and start
sure.
yelling. Like, keep it on you know, your own network and your own personal thing. I don't go from my page to their page and post all my psychic this and that about this case.
Right.
I keep
Right.
it pretty contained. And if you want to come and hear my insight about what I see, I do this every day. And I'm using that skill set to look at this crime. And that's it. And if you have an appreciation for that, and if you have a curiosity about that, and you want to know more about that, then you come over here. You know, it's not a big deal. I don't care. I don't care about the number of people that follow me. I don't monetize my sites at all.
Yep.
Yes, I make money doing private sessions, but that's about somebody's private life where they're asking
Sure.
about their personal situations. Of course, it's my time and effort to look at their situation. And the amount that I'm paid is commensurate with my television career. That's it.
Right.
There's no other answer to it. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. My time, I do this full time. So I I love hearing how other people though see certain angles that I miss sometimes. Like I'm so busy taking an overview. You guys are so good at the really minute details that I miss sometimes because I'm doing such an overview.
Right. Right. No, I get that.
And you guys are my little angels out there. You're like getting all the stuff that I don't possibly have time to look at. But then I read some of the details that you've uncovered and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's amazing." Um and it's because when I look at things, I look at intent level, I look at the larger picture usually, and I look at um, the path I'm on and my role in it and how I'm supposed to drive this thing forward. But when I look at your details and how you guys are able to piece together certain parts of the puzzle that I didn't even have time to look at, you don't know how that brings a smile to my face. I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, that's so great.
Well,
Like,
that makes me happy to hear that because
yeah,
it's a lot of hours, but it's the same as somebody that joins a book club and wants to read a book. I just read court documents, instead of a book, but
And
I
well,
enjoy finding
you
those
don't know how I
details.
appreciate the fact that you guys have been combing through that shit, and like on a daily basis. And you help me so much because it either confirms or it makes me question something I'd seen before, and I'll go back and I'll relook at it based on something you guys found, and I'll either double check myself and I'll be like, no, they got it. They're on to something there. And sometimes I'll do that. So it's not all about my ideas and I'm right, and I need to bring everybody over to my cult following, and everybody needs to believe the way that I see it. It's more that you guys bring such integral daily. I'm just amazed at the amount of research with some of the stuff you guys do. I
Yeah.
just, I not only am I amazed, but I am just so in awe of your patience combing through that amount of reading and writing, and looking at pictures until your eyes go blind and they're probably bleeding from the amount of
Yeah.
hours that you are staring at these videos. um I just, I give it to you. I love
Well,
that.
I
Like, I
I
would
think
hire you guys to be on my private team of investigators. I would. I so would, you know?
yeah, it gels. I think there's all of this meshes together really well, which is why I stay on this platform, because I love that vibe that
Mhm.
a lot of us have going on. So,
And you
and
just need to
I
be like
love your
me.
overviews. Like
Well,
I wish I could see things
you know
from the
what?
view that you do.
You can't do both at the same time. That's something I did notice. Like, I was trying to explain that before on another podcast, where a lot of psychic detectives, per se, um, they they make a huge mistake by gathering all those minute little details, and then they try to make sense of it right there and then,
Right, right.
instead of allowing it to just sit in the basket and then try to piece it together later. You never do both those things at the same time. You never try to make puzzle pieces fit the second you pick them up. You know that they're important, but you don't know how, and you need to let that rest and let that marinate for a little bit.
Yeah, and the last podcast that you did, I forget if you did it after sentencing. I can't
Yeah,
remember when you did
yeah.
that Kohberger one, but unfortunately I couldn't make it to that one, but I went back and listened to it on your YouTube channel, and your words, you made me feel like I am not crazy, because I was beginning to think I was crazy because of not being able to wrap my mind around this, or see this making sense at all.
Right.
And that, that podcast that you did was great. If others haven't listened to it, I hope they'll go to your YouTube channel and check it out, because it validated a lot of my feelings, and I wanted to be like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
like, thank you for saying that."
I don't know why I took so long to get to YouTube. I think it was because I was just doing so much stuff, and I realized that I could put my podcast on there, and a lot of people that are on YouTube could listen to it there as well as a video. And I thought, oh, I'm so stupid. I should have done that earlier. Um,
Mm,
the thing is
no.
that like I said, I run a tight ship, and um, you've noticed the way that I manage and I navigate a lot of the riffraff that goes on here on social media, and I just first I'm amused by most of it, and I just I'm just like, guys, if you knew the crime scenes I have worked up close and personal, you would just shut your mouths right now. You would just, I mean, I've been right there in the thick of it. And I was lucky to have that kind of access, because
Yeah.
not a lot of law enforcement were willing to do so when I first started.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I,
and it's because I just don't, I give them my eyes and I let them see what I see in case they miss something. So I tend to take some of what they already know, and I I'm a great addition to that. Like, I show them, like, maybe what their blind spot is. Maybe.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
It
And one day I'll know your real first name.
you will. You will.
One
You
day I
will.
will know that, but we don't have to put that out there for everybody. Um,
Um but no, you're great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I love when you do these podcasts. And I think sometimes people just don't really understand what you do. And I've worked with several amazing psychics and mediums
mhm.
just locally here where I am. So I feel like I just have a really good grasp on what you have to do. And I love it. I admire it. I respect it. I really feel it. I love to tap into that energy. And so you're just, to me, you've always been such a great energy on this platform. And,
Thank
you
you.
know, I
Well,
appreciate it.
and I want to clear up a misconception. Some people think that I hate other psychics, or I just don't acknowledge that they exist, that I'm the only psychic out there and nobody else has psychic ability, which is nonsense. If I know your work privately, I will sing your praises from here to wherever. I mean, there's only
Sure.
a few that I have met that I can say without a doubt have extraordinary ability. But I've seen others where sometimes they are just they align with certain ways that I'm thinking, and it's almost like we're two ships passing in the night, like I see that they see what I've seen, and it's like, hi, and I wave to them and they wave to me, and then I keep going on my path. But
Sure.
um, I I do see other psychics do have ability, and it's my my only caveat with that whole thing is the way you present it.
Right.
If you just start going off rogue, you go rogue with your information and you just start, that's where a lot of the gifts that we have and a lot of the insight that we can glean from these cases ends up looking, you know, like
Sure.
like it starts losing.
Less than credible.
Well,
Yeah.
we start losing our sheen. So
Yeah.
so I look at how they present it, and is it polished? Is it is it is it distinctive? Is it worthy of many to possibly take a look at? It's the way you package it, the way you present that material, the way that you deliver your message is just as important as the message itself. If you go off looking like a psychic with a neon sign hanging out your
Uh,
door, you know,
right. Right.
then, or a gypsy from, nothing to
Yeah.
say
Ta-
against gypsies. I mean, there's a lot of
tarot cards with Tiffany with the
yeah,
flashing light in
yeah.
her
I mean,
window. Yeah.
whatever it is, if you're gonna package it and you're going to want to have this level of respect and garner this type of respect, you have to present it in a package that's palatable to those that are listening to it, and you can't just go off this, that, and the other thing with your ideas, even if some of your ideas are really right on. The way
Yeah.
that you present the information, that data that you glean is just as important as the data itself. Because that's what a responsible psychic does. That's what somebody who's on their game does, and somebody that can lead an investigation does. So again, I don't know everything about everything, but I have been in this professional side of it for a long time. And I carved a name for myself with it. So I'm hoping that some people hear that and they realize that I didn't hate them because they were psychic too. It's not that. It's the way they're putting it out there.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So maybe just polish that a little bit. Think about how you're saying it or how you're packaging that whole idea or who you're telling. If you're having to fight the masses and having to force feed it down someone's throat, then that's not the way to present this material. You know.
Yeah.
So again, nothing
Agreed.
wrong with gypsies. I'm sure there are many that are very innately scary good at what they do. But it's in this realm, especially
Right.
on this
Yeah.
level with crime and murders and high profile, where lives are at stake and so much is at stake. This is where, this is on a grand platform. So you got to be up to it. You can't just walk around saying it like you're doing some roadside reader advisor thing in some, you know, you're at Not Scary Farm doing, in the tent there doing your little read. You can't,
Yeah. Yeah. Of
you can't,
course.
you have to do it in a way that will be accepted by those that can take that information and then they run with it. You don't force it down their throat. They understand the nature, in which it is given. So I hope that made sense what I tried to say there. But
No, it did. And I think that, the way you communicate is really great, and I think that's why many of us enjoy everything you share. Really, your posts, podcasts.
well, if you guys have other ideas for other podcasts, I always am listening. So on Twitter, just go ahead and, on X here, just, send it as a post. And I might, because I'm trying to do these more often, like at least once a week, maybe even more often, twice a week if I can. But, I'm trying to do them more often now. So if there are other ideas of other topics you guys want to explore, other cases you want me to look at, um, and if I gravitate towards that and I agree with you, we're on. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this is the first time that I've ever stepped up in a space and spoke.
No,
So, s-
no, get out.
yes.
You're actually
Isn't
really good at it. You
isn't that crazy?
you're really good at it.
I've really wanted to do it, but I don't know. It's a universe thing. I felt very drawn to doing this,
Wow.
and I'm glad that we
Well,
had a few
I
people
am
join
very,
us.
very honored by that. Thank you.
No, I'm honored. Thank you. And I see Erica in here listening, and I love communicating with Erica on this
Well, I gave
platform as
her a
well.
speaker platform as well. Erica, you want to say hi?
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hi.
good. So, what do you think so far?
Yeah. You know,
You there?
I just don't know. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're giving us a little echo. You might want to turn down your microphone a tiny bit.
Okay, how's that?
You can go a little more even.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, you don't need to speak loud, just speak regular. Okay.
Okay.
So, what do you think so far?
I think that there's more to be seen.
You're all
There's a
muffled.
lot more.
You're coming through muffled.
Oh, I'm sorry. It must be my phone.
Maybe put your phone next to your mouth instead.
Oh, like this?
Is that better?
Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I'm not sure.
you can turn it down just a tiny bit, and then we're good, I think.
How's that?
Good. That sounds good to me.
Okay. Good. I think that there's a lot more to come out as time goes by. I just think that someone is gonna have to buckle eventually.
You're going in and out like you're underwater.
I'm sorry, it must be my phone.
Do you want me to add you back in? Like get off of here and ask me again with a request, and I'll. It could just be a glitch. So
Okay.
get off here and then ask me again for a request, and I'll put you back on. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna wait for.
Yeah, we'll wait, give her a second. And I don't know Annie Artichoke, but I am glad that you stayed in and chatted with us.
She's been on with me on another podcast. So Annie said something about her microphone isn't working, or okay, hold on. Let me put Erica back on here. All right, Erica. Erica. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like you're underwater. So next time you might want to do it on your laptop or
Yeah, I think that's a better idea
yeah, because sometimes when you're on a Wi-Fi speaker on a phone, it goes in and out and you can barely hear. If you want to, you can sign in on your laptop or something and I'll bring you back in on that. How about that?
I can try that, but I'm kind of like a far.
Okay, because that way we can actually hear the words that you're saying. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So sign out and come back in on your laptop. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, so anybody else have any questions? Annie, are you able to talk on your microphone or no? Annie Artichoke. That's a cute name, Annie.
I was just going to say, I think that Annie Artichoke is such a cute name. So I just followed her because I love Annie Artichoke's name.
Annie, did you want to ask a question? Annie? Do you want to send me a request? Is your microphone on?
Oh, I'm reading a couple of comments that were made earlier. I wasn't paying attention to the comments.
Wait, I think I just added her. Annie. How's your microphone, Annie? I just added her on this thing. You there, Annie?
Oh, yeah, I saw her comment saying that her mic is not working. So
let me see. Annie, try to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Yeah.
Your microphone is working just fine.
Well, it was I used headphones and they were dead and I didn't realize it until I put them in to listen at the beginning. So I had to wait for them to charge back up. But I've just been listening this entire time and just really like just agreeing so much with what you guys have had to say. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in and just say that everything that you guys are saying is just ringing so true to me.
Was there a question that we didn't cover that you wanted to ask?
Not that I can think of as far as I think that everything that I'd been kind of wondering about was covered pretty thoroughly, especially the situation that's been in the news, I guess, the last couple of days with like the yelling things at Bryan and things like that, and whatnot.
Well,
But
what's your opinion on that?
um I think that um I don't really know whether or not to believe it, as far as like, if there's a grain of truth in it, it might be exaggerated. I think at one point you said that, like, he could have requested headphones or something like that. And what I had thought was, like, maybe he did, like, say, hey, people are saying things, can I get some headphones or whatnot? And then it was like taken and like twisted into
Yeah, I
he's
Yeah.
agree with
complaining
that.
and whining.
Yeah,
So everything.
he probably wanted like noise canceling headphones or something that he could at least get a couple hours sleep, because I think someone with his level of OCD doesn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours a night, you know?
Well, it was in one of the documents that was released by Moscow police that someone who had been with him, I guess, in the next cell over when he was in Latah County Jail, said that he was annoyed. The other inmate was annoyed because Bryan would not sleep
Yep.
all night, and then he would just like nap throughout the day or something like that. Um, so,
Well,
which was another thing that jumped out at me because
that's
I
the
don't know why.
wheelhouse of his
Yeah,
OCD level is definitely in that spectrum where, I mean, I know for me, I go to bed at like, 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning here, and I get up,
yeah,
and
and
people
I'm
think,
the same
oh,
way too.
yeah, people think I sleep till noon because I have some sort of a you know privileged life over here, but it's mainly because that's where a lot of my work happens, where I'm
I'm
winding
the
down.
exact same way.
Yeah.
I don't have
Same.
OCD, but ADHD, yeah, and I'm always up, all night and whatnot. So I get it. But yeah, I think that overall my read on it was just that everything in this case has been so disingenuous as far as the way that it's filtered through from what may have actually occurred or not occurred, and how it gets presented and passed around. It's like a big game of telephone almost, where, you know, something innocuous might happen. Like he might say, oh, I can't sleep, or can I get better headphones or whatever. And, suddenly it's all over like News Nation or various groups and whatnot saying,
Nancy Grace with her, like
Yes. Yes.
she's doing her crybaby, her crybaby imitation. you know,
yeah, yeah.
but I'm not making fun of her because she is so different, you guys, from how she is on camera. Like,
Hmm.
total opposite. Like, what a sweetheart she is on the other
That's
side of
so
it.
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh my
That's
god.
so
Yeah.
interesting.
And she's
Yeah.
short. She's like 5'2". I'm 5'4", and she was shorter than me. I was like, "Oh
Oh,
my
wow.
god, you're the sweetest little thing." And she said, "No, you're a rock star. No, you're a rock star." I remember we just kept going at it. And but on camera, she's a tiger. She'll go after you. I mean, she doesn't let go. And she also is a Scorpio like me. So we you know, would go head to head. But afterwards,
Yeah.
it was like that never happened. And she
That's
has been through such trauma personally and whatever. And I just send her all the love in the world because I know who she is outside of the camera persona, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that the people in these jobs, like her and like Brian and whatnot, have a like, it's their job to, you know, be a presenter, be almost like an entertainer, because news, the way that it works today, is not the same as it used to be, where people just watch at night, after dinner or whatever. It's a constant. They have social media presences. It's a 24/7 cycle. So I know that there's probably a fair amount of kind of performative, aspects that go into what they present
For
on
sure.
their channel. Um, so I get that. And at the same time, I also, take that and filter my own, however much, salt, I guess I want to take what they say with, as far as how credible or whatnot the
Well,
information might be at its
they're
core.
expected to produce content, and
Right, yeah.
the thing is that content is usually something very, it has to be something exciting, something that'll draw you in versus another channel that you could be listening to at the same time. So it's about the ratings, it's about uh, uh, viewership, it's about engagement and advertisers. And, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that whole recipe of putting on a show. I mean, even when I was doing Haunting Evidence, I got into it a few times with our series producer because he's telling me something about Natalie Holloway's mother and how, what I was saying wasn't going to work for her. And I
Mhm.
said, so you want me to change my read so that just one, and I understand her point of view, but he wanted me to like change it up so that it would be more
Mm.
acceptable to the family member instead of what I actually saw. And
Wow.
at the time he's saying this, we had rifles pointed at us
Oh my
on the
god.
beach at night in Aruba. We had rifles on us for 45 minutes. So I'm trying to like psychically tune in to the last
Mhm.
moments and what actually occurred with, you know, Natalie
Mhm.
Holloway and that whole situation there, and Jorn van der Sloot, and what happened on the beach, and rifles are pointed at us, and I'm trying to dismiss that and pretend that's not happening. And they were saying, "Get out of our country now." At the same time, we learned simultaneously they were in our hotel. And the
Oh
hotel
my god.
manager actually kept the authorities from searching our rooms.
Wow.
And they were going to go through all of our stuff and actually confiscate it. And,
Wow.
and the hotel manager got tipped a whole bunch of money when we left because they actually saved a lot of the footage. Two of our crew members were in jail while we were having dinner that night
Oh my gosh.
for
Wow, that's scary.
for guess what it was for? It was for shooting B-roll in Aruba
Oh my
on a
gosh.
street. They were shooting B-roll, doing nothing out of the ordinary, just shooting B-roll for the series. And they
Wow,
were
that's
arrested,
scary.
and our associate producer was over there trying to get them out of jail while we were filming on the beach, and we were told, get the hell off our island and like now. So the next morning we go to the airport, and I remember going through customs, and at this point, I'm not putting on makeup to go fly on a plane. So like I would be tan, but I'd have zero makeup on, and I'm like, "Oh, nobody's going to recognize me." But the woman at customs recognized me as I'm going through. And she
Mhm.
said, "Oh my God, I love you. I love you." And she said, "Would you please sign an autograph?" And I went from having guns on me 12 hours earlier to signing autographs at customs, going through the
Wow.
airport. And she said, "I love every single thing you do." And she's saying, "I watch everything and we love you here. Don't pay attention to no one." And I'm like, okay. So like I started crying because it was just so emotional, going from, guns to
Mhm.
this, and we just that episode, let me tell you. But that's kind of
Wow.
what it's like for people that work production. You have no idea what Brian Enton probably goes through. He probably has people threatening his life as he goes in and tries to get a story, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's hard to determine where to draw the line, what is discreet, but what, how can I do this to satisfy all factions, and do
Yeah,
it,
absolutely.
you know. So
Yeah, and to kind of I guess bring it back around to the whole, rumor about the taunting and whatever, is I guess that the thing that gets me the most about this case is um how many of us still do have questions, and how how it seems like the more information that we know, the for sure now, as opposed to, because for 2 years they had the gag order where they couldn't really release anything.
mhm.
Now, so we've had to really rely on what we can get through public access, of court records, and then like the media. But it's like now that we should be getting more answers with the release of police reports and things like that. It seems like we know less and less, and it starts to make less and less sense, as opposed to making more sense. I was right on, nodding and agreeing with, I think, the crime diva said earlier that she expected to be reading the documents and going, oh, okay, that explains this, that explains that, and because I expected to have that experience too, and it just hasn't happened. Um,
And I think that those have been scrubbed, like in a major
mhm.
way. Okay, I mean
Yeah,
those
yeah.
documents we're seeing have been scrubbed and sanitized beyond belief. So, because I have seen those types of documents,
Mhm.
a number of times, not because I'm showing off, but because that was actually part of my job, was to look at what was out of place. And there has been a lot of manipulation of
I mean,
what
even
what, what
they
is our need to
redacted.
know. I
Yeah,
mean, we were allowed to
redacted so
know, but
many.
look,
Yeah,
it's because of what I said earlier. I feel that this syndicate, this this undercover operation that's going on there is so huge that they
I
can't compromise their people that have been in there for like a decade trying to uncover, you know,
I remember I was like jumping out of my seat when you started talking about this, because it's so it makes so much sense. And there are YouTubers and whatnot who seemingly kind of figured it out, as far as like there's this whole angle of like a cartel and like undercover cops and things like that. But it's gotten to the point where it's so uh it's become so much of like a conspiracy theory, like red whistle, that like even with you have these YouTubers coming out and saying like the latest that I watched was that like somebody figured out or theorized, I wasn't sure on how they went about it, but like the body cam there was body cam footage of police in the area, like before the murders, like answering like a drunk call or something like that.
mhm.
And then like the murders, Bryan's car was supposedly caught on camera like an hour later. But like they said that all of the footage from the body cams and the cam that caught the car had been altered. Like there was an hour difference or something, and it was like an hour difference of like each time that there was a discrepancy, it was by like 1 hour and like 7 minutes exactly, or
Well,
something like that.
and
So like,
I just got like a psychic image of something. I'm going to interrupt you for a second while you're talking
mhm,
about that. Could it be that Ann Taylor and her team and private investigators are actually holding on to that because that's part of what they wanted to begin with to
y-
help their case?
yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it just seems so senseless. Not even just trying to, because like you guys were saying earlier, I can't picture Bryan actually being the one to do this, just because I like literally can't even picture it. And the narrative that's kind of gone around is that like he wants his like 5 minutes of fame, or like he wants all this attention, or he's so arrogant and everything. And I'm just kind of like, he's
He
barely said 5 words this entire time.
he
Like he
doesn't
seems like
want
the last
to.
thing he wants is attention.
Exactly.
um
He doesn't want
so,
attention.
and I
In fact,
yeah,
I think he's crawling in his own skin with the amount of attention. I don't
yeah,
think he's
yeah,
even dealing with this in such a way that my sense of it is, they analyze every little glitch on his face, every little movement, any little twitch of his eyes or his eyebrows or his, if he's glaring at somebody. He has an intense stare, but he's got like a lot of Scorpio in his chart, so of course he does. um
yeah. they
but
they usually have the body language stuff on YouTube, and I don't really watch them because I don't really, agree, as far as like they'll say, oh,
I think
he
he's
moves in one
smirking at
direction.
people going, "How can you be so sure?" And I think it was with the family members too, and it's like, "You're looking at me and sending me all this hate, but how can you be so sure it was me?"
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
and I think that's what he's smirking at, like, "You're doing all this, and I understand why you're doing it, and your loss has been immeasurable and unfathomable, and you can't imagine um, the pain that those people are going through." And he understood it. So he sat there and he took it. But I think
mhm,
that he looked at them going, I know your need to dump all this on somebody and you have to blame somebody. So I'm going to take this. But
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
I think any smirks were coming from, you're saying things because you need to say them and not because you have proof to say these things. You have nothing to
yeah.
back it up.
Yeah, that's exactly the sense I got. I didn't know how to articulate it, but yeah, exactly. I felt the same way. And it's so yeah, so it's just so nonsensical to try to imagine him actually being the one to do this. But the other than him being like kind of the person to pin it on, it's like, these four students were just living their life like normally as far as college students go. And so it's like it seems so random and like so, you know, like I don't know how any motive could make sense for the violence on that level to these victims in particular, who were just, out partying and just kind of living their lives, except if they kind of got caught up in the middle of something unintentionally or unawares, or whatnot, and it's this whole bigger picture. Then
Well,
that's when
I
the pieces
definitely,
start to
that's the
start
thread
to
I'm
fit.
going with on a psychic level, is that I see that, because they were so outgoing and effervescent type personalities, and they were just like beaming light wherever they went, they ended up attracting the fringe, and you know
Hmm.
the fringe that wanted to be around that kind of light and wanted to be around that kind of, college life and around those kinds of people, and, up close and personal, and to just watch them and be in awe of them, and, be next to them somehow. And I think it, I think what happened is that, just like Bryan has sort of a naive uh, slant to his psychological makeup, I think these women also, and Ethan too. I mean, had such a pure heart, that they didn't see the worst in everybody that came across. They left their doors open. Hey, come on over, doors open. Grab a
Yeah,
chair,
yeah.
grab a beer. Hey, we're here. We're the house to come to when you just want to unwind. Just
Yeah,
come
they
over.
seem very much like, just really taking to heart that living life to the fullest kind of mentality of, just being, 19, 20, 21, having, they've had all this freedom, but they weren't like freshmen, so they kind of were, transitioning into the next phase of their life, but just still like giving their all and everything. And and I can definitely see how that would, you know,
Well, and
draw people to
it,
them of all kinds, I
you
guess.
know, sometimes they would give off, this very welcoming vibe, and then
Mhm.
when the fringe would show up, and then the fringe thought, oh, we're in, and they tried to get too close to one of the girls or whatever. I think they had a buddy system going on, all of them. And I think
Mhm.
they took care of their buddy, whoever it was, and we know it was Maddie and Kaylee. They were buddies, and if one got attacked, the other one was right there, you know,
Mhm.
speaking up and fighting for their friend. And I think that's what may have been misconstrued as a rejection to whoever this was. And I think this
Mhm.
person was on the fringe, but I also think they were involved, uh, and possibly the target of the investigation that I was talking about earlier, where
Mhm.
they had undercover um, ops, going on, where they had deep cover going on with some of these students, where they recruited them, and they're there, you know,
Mhm.
migrating amongst all the students, and not drawing any attention to themselves. So I think what happened was is that they were looking at somebody that tried to get close to that house.
Mhm.
And I don't think it was the house itself. I think it was just it was the house to go to. Like, if anything's happening, that's where you go.
Yeah, it's a common, I mean, it's not unique to the University of Idaho that there are like party houses and things like that. So all of it just very normal, allowing there to be this kind of, darkness that just kind of, takes advantage of that.
I
Do
think the
you
person they were looking at, that I think there were a few key players they were looking at that were distributing for this syndicate. Okay.
Mhm.
I think that that's still in play. I don't get that that stopped.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they're still in deep cover looking at that situation. But I think one of those people that they were looking at and investigating, that could tie them to the people that they really wanted, you know, they wanted to take down the heads and cut off the head of the snake, you know.
Right.
They needed to do that, and they've been invested in this for like a decade now, and I just get it. It's been a long time coming, and then damn it, somebody went rogue and murdered these four, because I think, and again, I'm going to say Kaylee is who I pick up. I think something was said. Maybe Maddie was defending her and Kaylee said something in defense of Maddie. I don't know how exactly it happened, but
Mhm.
it was taken in such a way like, oh, you're going down, and
Well, Kaylee wasn't even supposed to be there. Well, from what I understand, she had like either was in the process of moving out or had moved out, and she was just visiting for the weekend. So
but
she wasn't
I
even
think
supposed to
that's
be
the
there.
key. Somebody had brought up
Yeah.
earlier that you know that, and I had read this, and it made a lot of sense to me, especially with the psychic visions that I had seen, that her coming back was the reason they chose that weekend to do this.
Yeah, that's what I mean is that like I can't um imagine that she's not significant somehow just for the fact that like that it happened on the one weekend that she was there.
I think she's the
Like
one that misspoke and said
mhm.
something out of turn that was taken completely the wrong way, but she was just either defending herself or defending her friend.
Mhm.
And I think she might have said it maybe a little too intensely. Maybe it had like an attitude with it, and
Mhm.
somebody decided that that wasn't they weren't going to accept that, and that she was going down.
Yeah.
I
Which is
I
yeah, which is
I
just
don't
sad.
think it was the intent to. to take the lives of all four of them. I do not. But I think what happened was is that there's such a tight knit group that there was no way they weren't all going to defend each other.
Right. Do you think that it's possible Bryan had either started to figure this out or was figuring this out or something, and that's what kind of, you know, targeted him, so to speak, if that makes sense?
Just my sense of this is that he, like I said before, he's the grand observer. Like I think he was always that guy that stood in the background and he would observe. And like he
Mhm.
made mental notes of all the different dynamics and whatever. And is he an informant for somebody? I mean, I'm not taking that off the table either.
Mhm.
Just because I see this other op going on, why wouldn't he be approached for
Right.
information, especially because he is so detailed, because he loves doing that.
Right. Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
the type that could blend in and just be in the background and no one would pay any attention.
Mhm.
So he's perfect. So
Yeah.
would he have been approached? Oh, I definitely think he would have. You know, he didn't, he wasn't like, you know, Mr. Social, so they could control him to a degree. He would monitor. If you
Mhm.
hear anything, write it down. If you see anything, write it down. Document
Right.
for us.
Yeah.
Document for us. Tell us who the players are. Tell us who's moving the material, who's moving the product.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Good
And
too,
point.
and
definitely.
he would be the guy because he could notice everything and then walk out and just be his awkward self and nobody would think anything of it. But
Mhm.
in also that same vein, he could be naive enough that maybe he was sort of awkwardly friends with one of the guys that's in this syndicate, and maybe he got, you know, a little too curious and asked too many questions, and maybe that person targeted him and said, ah, there's our guy, he's taking the fall for this whole thing now. They just
Mhm.
needed one. They just needed one guy that would work for that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Could someone
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me.
could someone have rented a car and lifted a license plate? I mean, you know, if you're running this type of operation and this many drugs through a small town, a college town, you could easily pick up a plate and switch plates. You know, they stick them on with magnets all the time. I see it constantly with some of the cases I'm working on. So they could have done that. They could have easily taken a car that looked like his, same make, model, whatever. They could have rented it even.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
the
never
thing
thought of
is
that, but yeah.
nobody's actually, you know, they could have even had a license plate that had the same number on it just to make sure they nab him.
Mhm.
The thing is that because they knew his movements, they knew that he was up at night and he had insomnia the way that he did, and he was going out for coffee at 4 in the morning. You know, I mean, whatever it was, you know, he had a routine that they were able to follow,
Right.
and you know, I am not dismissing the fact that law enforcement could have been working with him the whole time.
Yeah. I think that I think that that makes a lot of sense, and I think that as more information comes out that's made public, and we're able to kind of see to an extent, exactly what they did or didn't do, then it starts to, raise even more questions that this kind of, sort of larger puzzle, I guess, sort of puts together. And I think a follow-up question for that would be, and I don't know if you can, answer this, and really it might be mainly rhetorical, but how does it all end? Is Bryan, assuming that this is, what's really going on and everything like that, like, is Bryan just the sacrificial lamb who will spend the rest of his life in prison for something he didn't do? And how does that, um, you know, um, how does that play out in the balance of things with the lack of justice there, not just for him and his life, but for the victims who don't get true justice because the person who really did it, will never, have to take accountability for it.
Well, okay, that
You know
part
what I
right
mean?
there, that part right there just flashed when you said it. So that tells me that they will catch who really did it. Okay. So
Okay.
that part flashed. Okay. So let me just see. Will Bryan Kohberger, will he live the life in prison for the next however long he lives? Will Bryan Kohberger spend the rest of his days in prison? Let me look. And I have regular playing cards in my hand, by the way. That's how I don't know why I use them, but for some reason they work. And they don't really have pictures, and there's no real, like, it's not too, it
Hmm.
doesn't
That's
influence
re-
me too much. It's just something for my hands to do a rhythm.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I've been using regular playing cards since day one. I switched to tarot cards at one point, but then I just didn't, I liked the artwork, but it was distracting. Like
That is so
the,
fascinating. Wow.
the pictures distracted me. All right, so let me just take a look. Is Bryan going to spend the rest of his days in prison? No. Is Bryan going to file an appeal? Yes. And the only thing he's worried about is will he make it until that time? Because he's continually getting threats on his life, and
Hmm.
these are definitely serious threats, and he has to be careful. Just even going out for that 1 hour a day where he goes out to get a breath of fresh air, he has to be
Hmm.
careful the whole time, um,
Wow.
because he doesn't know if somebody, and I'm just saying this as an example, but somebody could pay off a guard to take him out.
Hmm.
I mean, they don't.
Yeah, I've seen things like that, theorized about, on the in all the social spaces about, guards could be compromised and things like that.
Well, and this is why
So.
he's just keeping. I think he needs to calm down about the noise through the vents, though, because
Hmm.
it's not. I think he needs to put on noise canceling headphones and be done with that. Let me just look.
Yeah,
Is Bryan going to file an appeal? When it's the 42 days up, is it September 4th?
I think something like that. Yeah, the fourth or fifth, maybe.
Okay. Is Bryan going to file some sort of an appeal before September 4th, 2025? Yeah, this has come up 4 times now, so I'm going to say that he's concerned about, he has a strategy and he wants to do this, but he's concerned that it'll be, the word I keep hearing is intercepted, that it will be intercepted somehow
Hmm.
by somebody else, and they'll, his plans will get foiled by what he is planning on doing. Um, do we know if Ann Taylor is still part of his crew?
I believe she is. They released a statement, I think, of a couple weeks ago saying that they weren't going to make any statements to the public because their focus was just on Bryan.
Okay.
So, I've
Uh,
assumed. I don't know for
I
sure.
do I do think that there will need to be an appellate attorney that jumps on his case though if and when he files that appeal.
That
Um
that makes sense with what I'm seeing.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to keep her out of harm's way with that,
Yes.
and where she doesn't taint his appeal in some way, you know
Hmm.
that she becomes an obstacle somehow, or uh, she wants to help as much as she can, but she doesn't want to be the reason that he gets shot down.
Hmm.
So
Right.
let me just see, is Bryan Kohberger going to file this appeal with some attorney, but will this happen? Oh, this is interesting. At first, he'll be told, no way, no how, just dream on, buddy. And then I see the one thing he's wishing for. So it looks like it's going to be the first thing will be no, you can't do this. But then I see a ray of light where he's able to. It'll be like a false start. Like he starts to do it, he's shot down, and then right away this other thing comes in, and I have a feeling it's because it's a power move, and it could be Ann Taylor's team and they uncovered something and they use it as leverage.
Okay.
And it could be what I saw at the very beginning of this podcast. It could be a Bill Thompson kind of little nugget of information. Okay. And it's enough to open this thing up. Let me just see if the death penalty is put back on the table, because we need to look at that. Is the death penalty coming back on the table should Bryan get his appeal? Is the death penalty coming back on the table for him? Again, Bill Thompson, man, he's coming up and he's angry. He's angry that this happened. How could you let them find this out? Something like that. Like he really thought he hid this little this I'm telling you, they're going to run with it. And I think I think there's a backdoor deal that's going to go on, and we're going to wonder how the hell did that happen? But I feel like the death penalty will come off the table in exchange for, we won't go after you with this. We won't release this to certain news organizations and they won't have it. So how do you want to play? And I think that
Interesting.
that's how it's going to go.
Does it have to do with his alibi or his location based on like his phone?
No, it's more like an impropriety, like something that Bill Thompson did during the investigation that he wasn't supposed to do.
Hmm.
And it wasn't the lead investigator. It was almost like, all right, I'm just going to put this out as an idea or an example of what it could be. It's almost like he went and and like it tainted some evidence or altered it somehow after it was logged or altered the
Hmm.
timestamp on it.
Hmm. That's interesting. Not to throw us off track, but I found it quite interesting after sentencing when the families gave impact statements and Kaylee's brother was going to speak in the courtroom and decided at the last minute not to. However, when the hearing was over, he went outside and he read his statement outside to the media. Did you guys watch that? It basically ripped Bill Thompson to shreds.
Oh,
I heard that had happened, but I didn't watch it personally, because by that point I was done.
It's
So
it's interesting, and I would, if you guys can find that segment on YouTube, I was shocked and I was like, wow, no wonder he changed his mind. I don't think he had the nerve to say all of that in the courtroom standing right in front of Bill Thompson. But
mhm.
he dismantled, Bill Thompson's career. And I mean, a lot of the work that Bill
huh.
Thompson has done, um that was, less than, less than amazing, I guess you could say. But so everything you're
Unsavory is the word I would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the more you're saying, Carla, about
Yeah.
Bill Thompson, I'm thinking of those statements that her brother made. And I'm like, huh,
Today
maybe I
is the
need to
first
go.
time I brought up Bill Thompson, to tell you the truth. I mean, I really haven't posted about him like at all, hardly. It's the first time it's been brought to my psychic attention because I asked the question this way of the universe. I said, what is his angle? Like, how is he going to navigate this? How, like, what is that piece of information he has? Who is he holding this information over? Like, I kept getting the idea like he's lording some choice piece of information that he has about something, and it's not extortion or something, but it's, it's definitely along the lines of, I've got something pretty tasty and I'm going to put it forward if this and this doesn't happen. And
Mm.
then I said, well, who does it involve? And then it showed me Bill Thompson. And I'm like, out of all the people in this scenario, like he didn't even, like, somehow he just escaped my notice for some reason. And maybe that was his plan all along, was to go under the radar.
He's been from the beginning, he's been very disingenuous in how he has presented information, and kind of how he has approached things. I mean, this is just my, kind of opinion or
Mm-hmm.
perspective, but for example, the he said at one point, or admitted at one point that a lot of the stuff that they had in the probable cause affidavit was inaccurate or couldn't be relied on, but then he turned around and read basically the PCA at the at the change of plea hearing, saying this is what we have on Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah.
Since the sentencing, he's given a few interviews where he's basically, the prosecution has pushed this narrative of, Bryan was stalking the victims. So he took this picture like the day after the selfie, the day after the crime happened, as like with a thumbs up, so like he was proud of himself or something. And then later with interviews, Bill Thompson said like, oh, we actually couldn't place him, he could have picked the house at random, like right before, the selfie that we released wasn't really that unusual. He took pictures like that all the time. Yes, he looked
Yep.
up serial killers, but he was a criminology student. It was nothing more than that. And I'd watched some of these interviews thinking, why is it that, now that Bryan has been sentenced and is in prison, you're suddenly coming out and saying, oh yeah, well, everything that we were going to present at the trial was really, we were filtering it through this lens of guilt when really they
Yep.
were perfectly innocuous explanations,
That
so
you're exactly right. You are exactly right.
yeah.
And that is what I thought would open more people's eyes to ask questions about this case, because they basically admitted, look, hey, we were just building a case on some information we could get. And boy, did they play it all to the media for 2.5 years to try to convince, the whole world that Bryan was guilty before he ever had a trial.
Exactly, and just coming out and saying, like, this misinformation in the media has led to, like, internet sleuths, like, making life hell for quote unquote innocent people or whatnot. And it's like, well, you didn't come out and bother to correct anything that you
That's
knew
right.
was untrue and disingenuous. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was doing something shady behind the scenes that somehow maybe Ann Taylor or the defense has
Well,
proof of and
Th-
can,
this is this is
utilize.
why that I sense that what I'm picking up and what I was being shown tonight was actually genuine and real and authentic, was because I personally never even gave him a thought, right?
Mhm.
Like he was just under the radar for me. But then I asked that very pointed question and I said, show me what his angle is, because it's going to be a very narrow aperture here that he has to go through to gain this appeal. And what has he got? What is he holding over somebody's head? And whose head is it? Like I knew
Mhm.
something. But while you were talking, I also saw something here about Ann Taylor.
Mhm.
I think the reason that he was flip flopping at the change of plea there and the impact statements was because a lot of that information, um, I think Ann Taylor was able to unravel the truth of that behind the scenes and said, look, we know you're full of shit. We know you've
Mhm.
got nothing. You've got nothing over there. And we know this. And he probably said something like, well, prove it. And the thing is that I think this is where Bryan came in. And I think he helped them with their case. I think he was able to provide some nuggets of proof. And
Well,
I think that's why he was offered this deal, was because he actually was able to come up with some helpful little, you know, like trajectory for the investigators, the private investigators that continued to work behind the scenes, even though they were told, oh, it's all done.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because Kaylee's father also made some statements. Now, he's been extremely emotional, so a lot of his statements have been rather erratic,
Mhm.
but he made some comments about how now Brian's not getting the death penalty. He's going to go to prison and he's going to work on the inside to help them on the inside.
He did. I
And
I
those were
remember
his
that. I'd forgotten
words.
about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It
This is the first I'm hearing of that. That
I
sort of
remember that he
aligns
said
with what I just said.
that is
he
it does align with
Oh
what
he
my
you
said
just
God.
said.
something like, Brian's not useful to anyone locked up 23 hours a day, so he's not going to be, or something like that. Because that's something that had jumped out at me. Like, oh,
Yep.
that's an interesting thing for you to say.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. So that really does align with what you just said. And after combing through a lot of the documents, you know, they had a lot. They had a lot to investigate. I've never followed a case where there are so many tips and leads and shady circumstances and people within footsteps of that house that, there was potential evidence that was noted but not investigated.
Yeah.
There were situations of a man that followed a couple of them home from the Mad Greek restaurant one night. And, that's all in the reports. Like, there is a lot
Hmm.
in those documents. So I feel for Anne and all of the work that she probably had to do very quickly, considering that the prosecution did not turn over all of those documents in a very timely fashion,
Look,
She
you
had to
know?
I know
submit
that
something like
I know she
24 or
was railroaded.
25 requests.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she was railroaded. I mean, there was no other
Yep.
way to describe what I was looking at there. I'm sorry to interrupt. So she, I see Ann Taylor as being sort of the level head. I called her, what did I call her in an earlier podcast? I called her our Paul Revere of this century.
Hmm.
Mhm.
The one that quietly through the streets, you know, warned everybody, without any, glory or whatever, but just knew that that was their role to alert everyone to what was going on. The on the ride at midnight, that this had to
Yep.
Mhm.
be, that information had to ring out and ring true, and no thought to himself or herself as she's going through this, and this selfless act of, I need to uncover the truth. And she didn't care about gathering the glory.
Mhm.
She just cared that the information, and that, her role in it,
Yeah.
that she was on it, that she was not going to drop the ball. And she
Mhm.
had
Yeah.
to save his life first, though, because if the death penalty wasn't taken off the table, and that was still in play, her first job was to protect him, to make sure he was still living so she could have someone to defend. And, are they looking for the real killer? People are asking me this. Well, if it's not Bryan Kohberger, then who is it? And I still see that this person is part of this thing they're investigating. This deep cover investigation that's been going on for like a decade, and that this person is enmeshed in that whole, and they can't uncover that until it's ready. They pretty much
Mhm.
know that he did it, but they can't say until they get the rest of their investigation, you know sealed up and tied up.
Mhm.
Well, and I can't help but think that the school and law enforcement are at the center of it. And when you look at other things that have happened, you've heard these families say over and over again, "Oh, but this was such a small, safe town." There was a lot of strange things taking place in this small, safe town. There have been a lot of deaths in that small, safe town with students, particularly, perhaps frat parties and things of that nature. There have been many animals skinned and killed, and very strange things for this to be such a small, safe, like Hallmark movie town that they all portrayed it to be. And I don't get that vibe. I get a very
Well,
dirty feeling from that town.
let me ask you a question. Where better to plant your syndicate, and have it take root, and
Yeah.
provide and be prolific and provide the fruit that you need it to provide, and have it be long term, than in a small town where no one it's going to go unnoticed, because there's nothing to do in a small town. It's boring. Nobody has anything to really do except to party, you know?
Well, you're
Especially
right.
with the college there, as far as like a lot of students who will go off to college for the first time will be the ideal people to, you know, to
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 distribute and to
indulge in,
promote.
like, yeah, to sell drugs to, and to do all that kind of stuff because they these kids just wanna party basically, and if they're going to, a school and having that college experience, so to speak, in a town where, like, it's already very small and very, just very quiet and, like, nothing's going on, and there's already, um,
The thing is,
I guess, who just live there and do drugs and things like that, like,
it
it's
wasn't
perfect.
the house at 1122. That just happened to be the stage upon which this played, and they were just always, "Hey, our door is open. You're going through a tough day, come over. We're having, just come over. The door is open." Whatever. That was their house. But the fraternities and
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
the college itself, that's
Well,
where I see a lot of that traffic.
well, and two
Mhm.
colleges though, because let's not forget that WSU in Pullman is literally 10 minutes away.
That's
So
correct.
you've got two states 10 minutes away
A two for
and
one.
two universities, and a lot of shady shit has gone on in Pullman too.
Hmm.
Mhm. That's true,
So,
yeah.
you know,
And
that's
the thing is that, again, hopefully we're not presenting this like it's some conspiracy theory, and people say, "Oh, well, you don't like to lose, and that's why you're not letting this go, and like just let it go." And first of all, if I acted like that or I behaved like that, I would never be asked to, assist in profiling on a crime scene ever.
sure.
Because if I'm the type of person that's going to give up just because somebody said it was over, that's when I get
Mhm.
started. That's usually when I come on the scene, and I get started because my skills are after everybody else.
That's what
Yep.
kinda gets me is that, like, there are plenty of cases where, most of us in the, so to speak, true crime community are content with the outcome and to let it go and things like that. It's really the exception, not the rule, that a case ends with more questions than answers and, something's not right about it and people still wanna keep digging. But what has really kind of thrown me a little bit is how aggressively, or first of all, how easily so many people, even if they were asking questions prior to Brian taking the plea deal, they were suddenly ready to say, well, he admitted it, so I guess there really is nothing to see here. But then the aggression with which they turn around and just kind of just deliver such vitriol on people who do still ask questions and whatnot. Like, I would think that if they are truly satisfied with the outcome, then they would move on to something else because they're not still asking questions. They have their answers. So it's been really, kind of jarring to me to see um
Well,
how this has played out as far as, like, whether or not it's case closed or not, is if that makes sense.
it does, because you see how I've reacted to these statements. It's just like,
Yeah.
my block feature is in full swing. I'm good to go. And like, I just swatted.
I block on the regular too,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I must go through 20 to 25 blocks a day, but it's, I swat them like flies. It's become a sport, and
Mhm.
the thing is that I don't have, I I literally don't react to it because I've had this type of attack on me ever since I've gotten into television. So I'm used to it. I've got my armor on and I'm in the battle, It's like, come on, guys.
Mhm.
Like, you know, if that's the best you got, you're not going to get anywhere with me. The
And if I
I
can
will
just
be
say that's
reasonable. I'll listen to what other people have to say. That's fine. But if you say it in such a way and you package it as hate or or disgust, or you package it in such a way to try to try to belittle other people and name call
Hmm.
and destroy them. And there's no place for that in my world. Like, goodbye, goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to tell you, because I see you go through and kind of uh just post like, oh, I've blocked, so and so or whatnot, and I've found that to be inspiring because that because I wouldn't necessarily engage just because like I don't have the energy and the time, but like but it would bother me. But since I've been following you and kind of seeing your responses to that, it's made me feel a lot more vindicated and just blocking and just swatting that away when I do come across it and see it and kind of preemptively. And then when people, my I have a very small page, so I don't get a lot of attention, but sometimes, I'll get comments and whatnot, and I'll just block them, so all of that to say that like your audience, so to speak, notices and takes that to heart. So
Well,
so thank you.
I hope I'm setting a good example. The thing is that I try to do it in a way that makes it, and it makes it a sport. It's like it's become funny to me after a while, and it's like people get so angry and so like they're so put off balance or whatever, and you won't find me. I mean, very rarely do I get off balance, and if I do, I will annihilate you. I
Hmm.
mean, in one shot, I am Luke Skywalker. I will annihilate you, and I will do
Yeah.
so with such precision. You won't even know that you've been annihilated until it's long past. So, it's I don't have to belittle someone to do that. I
Hmm.
Yeah.
I will find the one thing that will unravel your whole world, and you better just stand back. And it's
Hmm.
rare that I will get to that point, rare. But I am a Scorpio, so I have to admit, it's gotten to that point. Every once in a blue moon, I have to go that route. But most of the time, it's just fun. I just make popcorn and just watch the show. I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Hmm.
Some of the statements are just so like,
Sometimes I'll see people say things like, "Wow, this it's so weird how, you know, it seems so unusual for Brian to have done this, that, and the other." And it's like you're so close to getting it that like, you're I'm watching people do these like mental gymnastics to justify how it doesn't make sense that Brian would do this, but here's, 13 flips and tumbles to make it make sense. And I'm like, you're
Yeah.
so close to getting it. It's just
well,
And
and
none of us know. None of us know,
Mhm.
what really happened. And
Right.
I wish that we
except for
did.
maybe a psychic.
Well, yes. But
Maybe.
but besides you,
Well,
you
I'm not
know,
saying I know everything, but I know some things.
but yeah, I mean, I wish that we knew. I mean, geez, I love the fact that you have visions. I wish that I could do that. I would love to, and I don't mean to sound morbid, but I'd love to be able to see exactly what happened in that house that night, because I think I would have to see Brian in the act with my own eyes in order to believe that he could do that, and alone. If he had anything to do with it, he couldn't have been alone,
Look,
you know?
if
Yeah,
he if
yeah.
he was, what did he do before? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like boxing or something, like for recreation, like building up his
Yeah.
body, because
Yeah.
usually what happens is, when a guy feels insecure on whatever level, either they're insecure because women don't find them attractive, or their personality is weird and off-putting, or there's something about their body that is usually not accepted or something. They'll usually try to build up their body in some way. So if he was boxing and doing whatever, it wasn't out of some sense of anger at somebody else. I think it was anger at himself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it was him shadow boxing himself and his alter
Mhm.
ego of, why can't I just be a regular guy? Damn it. Why can't I just be normal like the rest of them and date girls and be normal at a party instead of being this weird person that I am? And I think a lot of that
Mhm.
was him working out subconscious anger with himself.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not a person who murders four people with a knife.
Mhm.
and if Brian was the type of obsessed with his education and really, was really threw himself into this criminology because he wanted to commit a crime, there's a thousand other ways he could have gotten a thrill kill without taking the risks that they're saying he took
Yeah.
to go into that house with 5 cars parked outside and 6 young adults. I mean, these were not little
He was an
kids. They were
observer.
young
I don't
adults.
think he was a stalker.
No.
That keeps flashing every time they said stalker. I'm like, no, people. I have had stalkers, so I know that mentality. I know that energy field. I know what that feels like, and I know their mindset. And he's curious, but he's not the type that would. I think he would have been so embarrassed if he got caught. If he was that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that it was very, self
And
effacing personality where he would have backed up and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Like not realizing.
That's that seems so funny. I don't even know why. That just seems so funny. Like it's this poor guy, like, outside of the context of like, him being accused of this, it's like, he seems like just a regular guy who's like,
I know
weird and
that
awkward, but it's just
area.
like it's like,
His,
oh, this poor guy.
well, his hometown. I know that area, and um, the thing is that there. It's not to say that somebody couldn't like have a a, a nervous breakdown or like a psychotic break, and then all of a sudden they turn into Mr. Hyde, and then they go to town
sure.
on whatever. And but usually the first part, the regular guy, is a lot more cool and a lot more smooth, and they've got the moves usually.
Charismatic.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
whenever we've got, Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with a split personality, the first guy is usually somebody quite attractive. Even if he
I mean,
isn't physically attractive, he presents himself in a package that's very inviting, very magnetic, very someone you would want to engage with. So that right
that's what
there,
everyone always says about
yeah,
Ted Bundy is how charismatic and good looking he was. And for all the things that have been said about Brian, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with him for the record, but like nobody's really said, oh, he was so
no,
charismatic. Like, that's just like the opposite of Ted Bundy.
he's you know usually when they're self-deprecating to themselves like that, and they everything is pointed inwards and they're not good enough and they're not worthy, it'll come out as arrogance on a, like, that's where the off-putting personality comes from,
I
where
mean, I've gotten that too. I was always very, very shy and kind of socially anxious and so I wouldn't talk a lot and a lot of people have definitely misconstrued that as like, oh, she's stuck up or, that kind of thing. So I can definitely see where that plays a part in, just this overall socially awkward kind of, package that he presents.
and he doesn't have the first part of that equation for me. When I look at him psychically, he doesn't have that Jekyll Hyde thing because he doesn't have the first part that would be
Mhm.
necessary to fuel the second part and ignite the second part into happening, into
Hmm.
manifesting. So that tells me that's not him. Could he
It
have done
seems like
it?
to me, like if he did like snap or
Yeah,
come to a breaking point or something and he acted out in some way, it would be more like if he, well, he was apparently he was, addicted to drugs as a teenager. Like it seems like more like his snapping and like acting out would be more like maybe going on a drinking binge or something like that, like something that's kind of out of character but harmful to himself as opposed to other people.
I agree with that. Also, if you are addicted to drugs or whatever, you almost always, I read some people that tend to take all the blame on themselves about various events in their lives, and you know certain things that are happening in their lives now. And the thing that I get from that is, if he is going to take it out on somebody, he'll take it out on himself.
Hmm.
What was that? What was that noise? Somebody had a
I
feedback.
don't know.
um, so the thing that I'm getting with him is, with Bryan, is that it's it's not a self-loathing, but it kind of is, because he beats himself up, because how come I can't be normal? How come
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
can't be like everybody else? What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I'm smart. I've got so much to live for. I've got a nice family. I've got a nice upbringing. I could do this. And yet he can't make it happen. And so every time he acts out, it has to be something. It's like self-flagellation in a way. He's
Hmm.
got to,
Yeah.
you know,
That's sad. Like,
It is.
so
It's like, oh,
yeah,
and I've
I'm
heard that a lot too. So.
I'm a Pisces, and I can be a little too empathetic sometimes, I think. Because I can find empathy for even someone as heinous as Jeffrey Dahmer. You know what I mean? But after researching him and reading about him and about his life, it really boils down to a very sad situation. And it makes me sad for Brian, that he's been put in this position. And I think I would still feel sad for him even if I knew 100% without a doubt that he did this,
well,
you
and you
know?
you can empathize with someone as a Pisces, but at the same time, you if you saw that their intent level, or the actual the seed of what makes them tick is something born of evil, well, then you wouldn't be empathetic towards that, and you would realize that you're not going to buy them any more excuses that they need to
Right.
reconfigure themselves. But that's where I think empaths think that they're empaths no matter who anybody else is. If somebody says they're a victim, then they're an empath, and they feel for them. And I think what it is if somebody shows their true colors to you, you're no
Yeah.
longer an
Oh, yeah.
empath, but you see.
Very true.
That's how I am. I've always been empathetic, even to the point like like the crime diva said. So I where I too feel myself like feeling sorry for people who have done terrible things or whatnot. But I have noticed that that doesn't extend to somebody like Donald Trump, for example. Like I have zero empathy for
Sure.
him, and like and there have been other people that have come up on the in the public space that I've been made aware of and whatnot, where something about them, it just feels so wrong that it like overrides my
Yeah.
instinct to be empathetic.
Well,
Yeah.
um
I totally agree with you.
yeah.
you
Absolutely.
don't want to take
Hmm.
the fact that you're taking them as a victim, but then when you see that it's deliberate, that their intent and their actions were deliberate, and within the scope of a proactive type of thing, that's where you change gears and you say,
Mhm.
that is not a good thing. That is something I want far away from me, and I wish you well. I wish you well on your way. Go, goodbye.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, it's just I want
Yeah.
nothing to do with any of that.
well,
Yeah.
and I have yet to see Bryan Kohberger be this evil entity. I I have yet to
Yeah.
see that. And they're saying, "Oh, it's the eyes. It's the eyes." Any
Yeah, it's
No.
like
if you have
everything that's said about him is so it seems so projected onto him. Like, people like, "Oh, he has it's his eyes or, the way he stares or something like that." I'm like, "I don't see any of
well,
that."
No.
he has an intense gaze, but that's again a lot of Scorpio in his chart. So, it's something.
He does, but if he were charismatic, people would say it was, like, brooding and, like,
Well,
appealing,
yeah,
like that
it,
dark kinda thing.
it's because they don't understand him, and they end up ascribing it to he's diabolical. You know.
Did
Mhm.
you did you ladies see his sister at the sentencing? I
Yeah.
mean,
I
they
did.
are
They like
identical.
Yep.
I was like, "Wow, if you put a wig on Bryan Kohberger, you would have his
Yeah.
sister." Like, that's
Same
amazing.
same eyes,
Well,
the
Yeah.
he's
same
giving her
eyes.
crap because she had a little makeover. But you know what? If I were going to be seen by the entire world like that, I mean, if I were going to be on TV and I knew most of the world was going to be watching that over and over
Yes.
and over again,
Mhm.
well, I would go get a makeover too. You know,
Yes,
Mm.
of course.
I mean, who the hell
Yeah.
are we? Everybody can look amazing if you do just this and that. I mean, and the thing is that otherwise she would have to relive that every single day of her life and just hide in a corner somewhere. I mean, I would have done the same thing. But, everybody
Mhm.
has their own way of thinking about how people process grief, how they process anger, where they need to place it. And, I think we answered the big questions of, do we see this happening? But remember what I said. First, I see like a hard no, like
Mhm.
somebody's throwing a major boulder in his path, like an obstacle, but then I see it turning. Like all of a sudden it turns and it becomes what he wished for. So it's either some information he's holding on to that if they don't acquiesce to his wishes, that's going to come out because he could easily go to the media. He could easily do that now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see how that plays out. But that's what I saw. I saw first slam the door in his face. No, hell no, that's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the turning of the tide. So let's see.
Mhm.
But I do see that they've been working on this the whole time. And Ann Taylor, is she going to do the ride of Paul Revere, the midnight ride? Is she going to come charging in the wee hours unnoticed and ride through the neighborhood, and then she comes up with something? So I wouldn't count her out yet. I just wanted to know, is she still part of his team? Because I didn't know.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense because at the beginning of this case, when she was first assigned to the case, I heard a lot of things about how, like, kind of her reputation preceded her as far as she was like a really good lawyer and things like that. And she's, clearly has, just given 110% to this defense and whatnot.
Well, and
So
every,
I would have,
they were saying,
yeah, so I would
oh,
have a hard time
she
thinking
she
she'd
has
walk away
feelings
or
for him or something, and it's like I keep reading this nonsense, where
it drives me insane. I'm
where
like,
she put her hand on his chest. Yeah, that means
oh
that
my God.
they're getting it on in the back room before trial. Um,
Oh.
I mean, it's
It's
whether it's
so it's like
I
people can't fathom,
look,
like,
I think
people
she's
thinking critically, so they have to be like, "Oh, well, clearly you're just, something nefarious is going on here, or whatever.
I think she sees that she was fighting for the truth. And I think
Mhm.
the hand on the chest and the hand on the arm, and all that is just her being a normal, let's talk about
If anything, it seemed
empath.
more
She's an
like
empath.
maternal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just a
Just a
person.
show of comfort, like a gesture of comfort.
Well, and especially because she knew what he was about to face, hey, they're going to
Mhm.
stick you in this teeny tiny little room and whatever. And I could see him being all stoic and Bryan being all stoic and saying, hey, um, it's going to be okay. It'll just be like home because I always stay in a very closed space anyway. So that's kind of my life anyway. And I can see
Mhm.
him making her feel better about it. And I can see her feeling bad about it.
Mhm.
And I think it's
Yeah.
because they both kept working on this and they're helping each other, trying to uncover what they need to uncover to at least get this done. Are they looking for the real killer? I think from what I see, the real killer will be revealed in the correct time on the timeline. This will happen. But I also get that this other case that we were looking at, this deep cover operation that's been
Mhm.
going on for a little while. They don't want to upset that because that's been going on for so long, and they're very close to uncovering that entire network.
Mhm.
So,
Is that I don't really, except for TV, like I don't really know anything about how that works. Is 10 years, is that like average for like operations like this to go on for, or is that short? Is that long, or like that just kind of blew me away as far when you
yeah,
said 10 years. It's like, "Oh,
um,
wow." Like,
it's something where they'll have different people go in. If they age out, and they're too old to be in the classes, they'll have them there as a teaching assistant or something. But
mhm.
or an advisor or something like that. But I've actually been witness to where one was 15 years.
Wow.
So, people go in and it's they know that they're giving away a chunk of their life
Yeah.
for the
Mhm.
cause. They know.
That would make even more sense with if they did somehow approach Brian or something like that, because he is already such a loner that,
Well,
he seems like the perfect candidate to be in
that's
it for the long haul.
that's what they look for. They look for the one that will blend but also observe and has a keen eye for connections, and
Mhm.
they know what to look for. They know the patterns and they know what looks out of place and what looks to be, and they have their assignment and they go in and they know what they're doing. So um it's just you have to have a certain psychological profile to fit that, and where
Mhm.
a big part of that is how long and how many hours can you spend by yourself and be okay with it,
Yeah.
and can
Mhm.
you be by yourself for 95% of the time and not go out of your mind.
It definitely would take a certain kind of person.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to be alone a lot, but I can only do so much before I'm like, I have to go talk to somebody.
So well, I think we've gone 3 hours and you guys are still like engaged. Thank you. I just
Yeah.
I hope I got to like most of these questions. Is there any other question where somebody, we didn't cover it or I didn't make it clear? Is there something else about this? I mean, we'll see how this unfolds. But right now, I'm seeing that he's going to get a hard no on the appeal. But then I see the turning of the tide. I see all of a sudden it turns in his favor. So there must be something he has. And how does Bill Thompson play in this thing? Because I'm seeing him all of a sudden where I didn't see him before. Like he was under the radar for me. So I don't know. You guys are such good little detail finders. So if stuff happens and I'm busy doing readings, can you just let me know on the platform here
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
post me things and let me know, or go on YouTube and post it as a comment if something
Hmm.
happens along the lines of what we're seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I might not hear it
definitely.
first. You guys have your ears to the ground much more than I do. So if you can let me know, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, this has been yeah, so fascinating. So thank you so much for hosting, these spaces because I find them so valuable.
well, I'm gonna try to, like I said, I'm gonna try to do at least one a week. And if you guys have other ideas for, like, different angles of things, either with this case or any other spiritual topic, just, send post me a thing and I'll take a look at it.
That sounds great. I definitely will. We will chat soon, and thank you again for letting me jump in and chat with you tonight.
Oh my God, it's been
Yep.
like I'm still wound up. It's gonna be hours before I go to
I
sleep.
know, and it's midnight for me, so I
Yeah, me too.
I'm
Oh my
wound
God,
up
you
too.
guys.
This is
Oh
why
my
I don't
God.
sleep.
It's gonna be like 3, 4 in the
Yeah.
morning before I get to bed. I'm gonna be like up all night because I'm just so wound up when I start talking and I get in psychic mode and I start talking and seeing images in my head and then I can't stop. And
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just, I try to watch like one of my shows just so that I can just think about something else, but I'm still going to be wound up. So, you guys were perfect. Perfect. I'm so happy you came tonight. And Wednesday was a good day to do this. We might do another Wednesday again.
Yeah, this was great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
I
was
think
very, very
Wednesday,
great.
nothing ever happens on Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. So maybe we do Wednesdays from now on.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Yeah. I'm pretty available, most of the time. So
Great.
um
Because the weekend
I
is
I
hard.
definitely make the effort to be here.
The weekend is hard, and Annie, you had a birthday. Happy birthday to you this past couple days.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
happy
Thank you. Yeah, it
birthday.
was on a thank
Yeah,
you. It
I
was
just
Sunday,
wanted to
so that
throw that
was
out there.
yeah.
I saw
Thank you.
I saw you were having your little day, so I just wanted to make notice of that. Anyway, I will check
Thanks.
with you guys later, but thanks so
Yeah.
much, and
Thank you,
until
Carla.
next time, and we'll keep on this because if there's something else, we're gonna jump back in with another emergency podcast here. But I will get this up on all the platforms. It should be up on YouTube within the hour. Okay.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thanks.
Sweet dreams.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you guys. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.